Hi, students and parents. This is Mr. Scholl. Tomorrow night, or maybe depending on when you're listening to this, tonight, last night, I don't know, is back to school night 2023. We only have 7 minutes together if you come and meet me in person, which is all fine, but it's a little bit of a rush. So I thought I'd record a video so I could go through a few things in a little bit more detail, or if you can't make it, then you can listen to this or watch this on your own. The QR code on the left, if you want to scan that, you can fill out a survey that, hey, I'm a parent, I'm my students in this period for Mr. Scholl's class, all of that. You don't need to, but if you do, then I'll know you watched this. All right, here we go. So hopefully by the end of this class, your kids are going to pass the AP test and learn to convey ideas accurately and precisely. As far as scores go, the scores of my students were down a little bit last year. The average score was 4.25, and it's a little bit weird because you can only get a 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. Not many of those. 51% of the students in my class last year got 5s. 93.7 passed the test, meaning a 3, 4, or 5, which is pretty darn good. Hopefully we can beat that this year. If you're a student, or your student, if you're a parent, buys in, does all the things I ask, shouldn't be any problem earning a 4 or a 5. Everything we do this year is geared, formatted to do well on the AP test. So in order to do well, it's not just being able to do those math skills. Critical reading, critical writing, logic, precise speech are going to be stressed, demonstrated, and taught. Hopefully your kids have told you every day, we're talking a lot, they're explaining things. The expectations are awfully high by the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, there's a whole lot of, hey, this is a little bit different. Here's how you need to say that. I know what you're thinking. What you're writing really doesn't match. I'll help you with that. And the nice part is that should help your students in most of their other classes. If you can be precise in what you're saying, well, you're just going to be more organized, more convincing, all that good stuff. So here's just a visual of what the AP test scores for this class look like. Mrs. Saeed's scores basically look the same. Everything's skewed on the end that we want it. Most students got 4s or 5s. In fact, hey, 51%, most students got 5s. And you can see the breakdown of numbers over here. So I'm trying to get, hey, your students are in AP Calculus. Most of the things should be handled by them. And in fact, it's a lot easier for us to handle that. If it's math, if it's a grade thing, whatever it is, we can spend, 30 seconds in class talking about that. I have all the grades in front of me. Email goes back and forth. The student sends me one, I send one back with a question, you send back and forth. So it's always just quicker to do that in class. If you notice, hey, you're missing this assignment and your student says, no, I've done that, whatever, have your student come talk to me. I update, well, we'll get to it in a bit. If you want to talk about, scoring, how to do well in the class, all that sort of stuff, it's better for us to sit down in person anyways. But for the most part, even a couple weeks in like this, your students know what to do. We just need to, get them to do so. That's not to say, hey, don't email me. If there's something you need me to know, hey, my student has this particular thing I need you to know about, email me, please. We can meet, no problem. But I'm just saying, hey, my kid got 9 instead of a 10 on this homework, or, why was this particular problem on the quiz not full points? It's a lot easier to do in person with me and the student. So one thing the kids should be able to repeat back to you is that, hey, your job is to show what you know. And if this is actually from a homework assignment, one of the students from this year, math is a logical process. Everything should read like an essay. You shouldn't have to explain what you've written. The work should be nice, neat, organized, and tell the entire story of what's in your head. Once that sort of clicks, gosh, this class becomes so much more straightforward. A lot of students are used to just worrying about the answer. That's the way a lot of lower level math is, because those are just skills based. Can you get this correct or incorrect? So this came up in class this week in lecture. It's possible to get, the right number at the end, which is why I have correct in quotation marks, but still earn no points. So this work on the left is actually correct. We were working on trigonometric limits. And the work on the right, you'll notice, got 5/3 as well, but is incorrect. So it turns out you can't just magically pull this, see this 5? You can't just magically pull that 5 out front. So even though, let's say, 2 different students turn this in on a quiz, the one on the left would get full points because they showed they understood the process, followed the rules of math, because there are rules, and the person on the right wouldn't, even though that answer is correct. And so it's really a big change compared to previous math classes. I know that. I'm working with the kids. I'm teaching, a lot of feedback about all that sort of stuff. So almost everything is in teams. Homework is assigned here each night. There are documents. There are actually solutions to, I won't say every homework, but most homework, well over 90%. There are lecture printouts right here, class PowerPoint printouts in case you're absent or, whatever we did didn't make sense, you want to go back. All that sort of stuff is in there. That's like the number one place to go. And parents, if you have a student, you want to say, hey, did you have anything for calculus? Have them show you, if you click on the correct period, it'll say assignments and then whether they've submitted that particular day's stuff or not. Sorry, I don't keep grades in teams. I've just found out it's a ton of work and it takes a lot longer. So I look in here, pencil and paper. Also, so I have a paper backup, and then I just keep grades in Aries, where you check attendance, all that sort of stuff. We use Delta Math quite a bit. We use it for homework a lot. The nice part about Delta Math is it does give the kids feedback. Hey, this is correct. This is incorrect right away. Unfortunately, we can't use Delta Math for everything because it doesn't really show understanding. So I use it interspersed with a little more rigorous types of homework where they need to explain and show their work, which Delta Math really doesn't check. You can also check out my school website. This red and white paper is basically the big highlights from the syllabus that you or your students want to know. There's also these rules about extra credit, or at least the guidelines. We'll come back to that in a second. I don't know, you're here, but if you want to see the back to school night printout, there's a PDF right here. AP night from last year. I don't really update the website a lot. That's mostly for beginning of the year, parents, that sort of stuff. Almost everything is updated in Microsoft Teams. So the goal of this class is, to pass the AP test, which means an A should predict that the student's going to earn a 5. A B predicts that student will earn a 4. A C predicts that student will earn a 3. That's not set in stone, but that's, hey, the type of work you're doing is kicking butt. You're doing really well, or, that's at least where we're at. At the end of every week, I do a little bit of grade analysis. I post these on the door. I haven't figured out a good way to post them online. But anyways, so if you look at the percents, they actually didn't match exactly. This is from last year at the end of the year. 42% of the students had an A, 40 had a B, and so on down the line. And so I'm constantly kind of tweaking and going back. Does this represent? And after I got the scores from the AP test back, I didn't look at them till August. I went back through the activities we've done, the assessments and all of that, to try to change things to better reflect. Because as you can see, hey, I probably should have about 10%. In fact, it's almost exactly. There are about 10% of the students that got Bs that should have had As, if it matches up with that 5 on the AP test. It's never going to be perfect, but I just want you to know that that's, hey, what that grade means. And the kids, they should be able to say this, or maybe not. Your grade represents what you know. And if you're like, hey, I want a B, what do I do to get an A? It's not really a question about, how do you do your work differently? Maybe it is. But it's, maybe you don't understand things well enough. Okay, you're doing the homework. You're doing the classwork. Do you understand it? Do you have a real depth of knowledge? Or are there actually questions in your head, I'm talking to the students here, that you didn't understand something, but you could do it? That sort of thing. If you can do something but don't really understand all of the details, why did we do this, why not that, that's probably something you're missing. And that might be contributing to, hey, I don't have like a 98% in here. Those are things we need to fix. So 25% of the grade in this class comes from the homework, the independent work. And by the way, that homework is basically, participation. If you do it, if you do everything you're supposed to, whether it's right or wrong, you're pretty much going to get those points. There is a rubric. I'll show the kids. We talk about it all the time, but I'm realizing I don't think I have it posted. The other 75% of the grade comes from tests and quizzes. Tests are just longer. They're worth twice as much as a quiz. Quizzes happen basically once a week or so. On top of that, I do take late work. If I assign something, I understand the kids are in soccer and they're in band, they're in football. We actually have a ton of football players this year, whatever. And other things take priority. That's okay. Just turn it in late. For the most part, really good students like your kids, they're either too busy to do the homework, which, okay, cool, do it the next day. They could use the practice, or they don't understand something. And I don't want a lack of understanding to, be the final thing. So if you don't understand something and can't do the homework, we're going to keep hammering that every Monday. Hey, you're missing this. Hey, you're missing this, until you get it done. Because I do want to help. And this kind of sounds harsh, but hopefully it won't. I work really hard to get the grades updated in Aries every day. It's not always every day, but it's really, especially first semester when swim isn't going on. I update them at least, let's say 4 times a week. If there's some problem with the grade book, please don't email me. Please don't have your students email me. Sometimes it takes me a day to put stuff in. Like I'll be typing in grades. As I said, I do it kind of pencil and paper from Microsoft Teams. And then someone will ask a question and I'd rather help you with calculus. So I may just get interrupted. Just have your student come in, have them talk to me, but give me a day or two. And like I said, grades are kept in Aries only. Everything in Aries is up to date. If, hey, something's missing in there, I think it's not there. If the student can't figure it out, well, come on in. Let's figure it out together. There is extra credit. The first time I did this, it was 5 nights a week. We decided that was a little bit too much. The kids kind of felt like, I don't know, it's kind of a long story, that if it was every night, there was just too much work. And some kids don't take the extra credit as extra. As I showed you already, hey, you can click on the rules. They're in Teams and on the website. The extra credit is there to give the students extra practice. At the beginning of the year, that extra practice is trigonometry, algebra, lower level skills that they need to be successful in this class. Instead of telling the students, hey, you need to work on this, if we give them extra credit to practice more, hey, they're going to practice more, even though, I guess they know they should. Most teachers don't give this much extra credit. I had a couple of parent complaints last year because one of the things is if you're missing any work, you can't get any extra credit points because you should be making up the missing work. And, that became an issue. I don't think it'll be an issue again, but I had to suspend the extra credit. Hey, it's not worth the effort on my part to get complaints when this stuff was laid out ahead of time. So just watch out for that. If you don't understand, hey, ask me a question, ask your student. They pretty much understand. Okay, as far as the homework, I think I said this. Hey, homework is graded on completion and effort, not accuracy. The solutions are there. So, if you want to check, great. We check everything in class, have the students self-reflect. The goal of the homework isn't like all lower level math classes where it's just, hey, here's something, we're going to do it 10 times in class, do it another 10 at home. Sometimes it's an investigation. Sometimes it's going into an idea a little deeper. Sometimes it's a sidestep where it's the same idea presented in a different way. And so if your student it's not struggling with homework, but they might feel that way, not understanding everything, having a little bit of confusion, hey, that's normal. This class is pretty darn hard, which is why we're spending 2, 3, 4 days on a topic, because the students need it. So if there's a little bit of confusion, okay, write down those questions. Try to circle the parts, figure out, so that way the next day in class, we can have a better discussion than, hey, how do you do number 1? In terms of, hey, how can I get some help? Well, there's a student solutions manual for Calculus AB, the Sullivan book. I've actually taken most of the problems we use out of the book and put them into more manageable worksheets just because it's easier for students to access that if they're, you know, on a band trip or on vacation or whatever. So that's still there. Every once in a while, we'll do things out of the Sullivan book, but for the most part, I've pulled those and put them in separate worksheets. There are solutions for almost all the worksheets I assign. There are answers on problem sets, meaning sometimes I don't want to provide the solution, but I'll give the kid, hey, number one, you're supposed to get 1/3 when you're done. And so that way they're getting a little bit of feedback. And the solutions will pop up the next day, but sometimes I need them to investigate without knowing kind of the whole story. I have PowerPoint PDFs, so the stuff we do in class. From this point on, I have all of them from last year, and the lessons are going to mostly be the same. I rewrote the first unit. So those are always in Teams. There are some videos on YouTube. I made those when we were learning at home during COVID time, and then my oldest daughter was born. Some of them are outdated. The material's there. It's just the section numbers don't match up exactly. Those are all in there starting in about Unit 3, Applications of Derivatives, really the end of Unit 2. I know it seems crazy, but asking questions in class is a great way to get homework help. I'm usually in here before school. I'm always in the room at lunch. The students are welcome to come by. So circles, squares, and stars, hopefully your kids are writing those on their homework. You know, as far as asking questions in class, I try to, I don't really guarantee it, that, you know, any problem the student gets incorrect, they're circling. If they think it's perfect, they put a star next to it. And if it's, I think I'm right, I'm not certain, I think parts of this are right, they put a square around it. And this one little bit really helps out the class discussion when we're reviewing homework. I say, hey, I have this basically on a slide, and you know, right after the warm-up, we pull out our homework, put up circles, squares, and stars. And because the kids have already thought through what they do and don't understand, man alive, the discussions are just so good because, oh, you got number one correct. I struggle with that because I have a square instead of them having to stop and slow down and think, did I understand? As far as the class time, the one who's doing the talking is the one who's doing the thinking. You don't have to talk in class. But I've found over the years, the kids that want to sit in the back or whatever in the front and just sit quietly, copy notes, they don't do that well because they're not in the habit of trying to explain their ideas. And we've all had that thing when you start to talk, all of a sudden, if you don't understand something really well, the words just don't come to you. You don't get that feedback of you don't really know. Or let's put it another way. If you're explaining something to one of your friends, to Mr. Scholl, whatever it is, hey, you're actually going to remember that a ton better, especially compared to if you had just written it down or if you had just heard something. We all know the first time you hear something, maybe you'll remember it. You write it down, you'll probably remember it. You write it down and explain it to somebody else. Hey, now we're really getting to that. Okay. The other thing about, hey, talking more or asking more questions, if your kids are giving me feedback about what they're good and bad at, I can tailor the class time to what they need as compared to what I think they need. We're going to cover everything and they're going to do well. But if I have feedback that we're going too slowly, too quickly, you need more examples, you need less examples, we're going to be going the best pace for the kids and they're going to get the most material the most quickly with the most depth of knowledge. Okay? And like I said with the homework, try to come to class with what you do and don't understand. If you come in with, hey, last night this one part didn't make sense, well, it's going to be a lot easier for us to fill in that gap in knowledge rather than stumbling into, hey, you know, maybe you misunderstood this. That's all I have. Thanks for watching.